The World Cup belongs to Kylian Mbappé. That is not a hot take. That is not premature hype. That is the documented, undeniable, statistically supported reality of what this man has done every single time the biggest stage in football has been assembled and the whole world has been watching.
Elise, lovely. Mbappé! Mbappé!
From the moment he first set foot on a World Cup pitch as a teenager,
for sure, he's going to be closer because he's going to score other goals during that World Cup. He's going to maybe play another World Cup.
He has dominated the competition in ways that players who have spent entire careers chasing that kind of impact never come close to achieving.
He's the guy that the Cristiano and Messi are handing over. Yeah.
And now, entering 2026 as France's captain, as Real Madrid's main striker, as the reigning France all-time top goal scorer.
So he's the all-time top goal scorer for France now, and he's like 27.
Yes.
The guy is making history and breaking records right now.
He is not just chasing a legacy anymore. He is building one that could pass even the greatest names this sport has ever produced. Let us start with what that all-time scoring record actually means, because the context matters enormously.
Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said, "By the power of Grayskull!"
France have had extraordinary footballing talent over the decades. Platini, Zidane, Henry, Trezeguet, Ribéry, Benzema, players whose names carry genuine historical weight in the sport.
In 2018, you were a teenager playing in your first World Cup.
Yeah.
In 2022, you were a breakout star. What does 2026 have in store?
Captain now. I'm the captain of the team.
And the record Mbappé has now surpassed, the all-time top scorer for France, was a record built across generations of remarkable talent. The fact that it now belongs to a man who is still in his mid-20s, who has not even reached what should be the peak years of a striker's career, tells you everything about the scale of what we are watching in real time, and the gap between Mbappé and whoever sits second on that list, it is only going to get bigger.
Mbappé! Thuram! Mbappé! Oh, wow! He is an awesome force of nature!
I could not take my eyes off this. I could not.
Brutal and brilliant! It's 2 each in the World Cup final!
We are not watching the end of a record-breaking run. We are watching the early stages of a statistical legacy that might not be seriously threatened in our lifetimes. Now let us go back to the beginning, because the 2018 World Cup in Russia was where the world first understood in full what Mbappé was going to become, and the details of that tournament deserve proper attention rather than the shorthand version that people usually give them.
But we're talking about a guy that at any minute can unlock any situation and any defense.
Because Mbappe does things that like other players cannot do.
Somebody who seems semi-human at times because he is so talented.
You know, this is what you want to see. This is why you put your TV on. He is an all-round superstar.
Best player in the world, maybe the future best player in the world. I mean, the sky is the limit for him.
Teenage kicks! The ultimate teenage kick! The boy with the world at his feet!
France arrived in Russia with talent that was genuinely extraordinary across every position, but with an identity crisis that was equally genuine and equally significant. They had lost the Euro 2016 final on home soil to Portugal. They had the players to win anything, but whether they had the system, the structure, and the collective coherence to make those players function as a tournament-winning team.
Nothing, and in a way that suddenly I was so disappointed of seeing my national team being in its last, all the players being in the last 20 yards, trying to save the result, like, I don't know, Panama, or I don't know, another small team. And that's a team who think they can win the World Cup, maybe.
Was a very real and very open question. Didier Deschamps was pragmatic to his core. Not spectacular, not exciting, but effective in a specific way that prioritized defensive organization over attacking expression. And into that environment stepped a 19-year-old Kylian Mbappé, fresh from an extraordinary season that had seen him move from Monaco to PSG, carrying pressure that would have crushed most players his age.
It's one thing to do it for Monaco first, and it's one thing to do it for PSG with more pressure and more expectation. It's another thing to do it on the biggest stage of all against top players in the world in a game like that in the knockout stage of the World Cup, and it's just incredible, and there's no limit.
The opening game against Australia was not the arrival of a superstar. France won, but they were unconvincing and disjointed. Mbappé started on the right wing, the connections with Griezmann and Dembele were not clicking yet, and if you had watched that game without knowing what was coming, you might have wondered whether the excitement around this teenager was as justified as the hype suggested.
Speed does make people scared. He installed fear into defense.
Then came Peru, and the history books. The goal itself was not spectacular. A tap-in from close range after a deflected Giroud effort looped over the goalkeeper. But at 19 years and 183 days old, Mbappé became the youngest French goalscorer in World Cup history. And what was arguably more impressive than the goal itself was what was happening around it. The tactical discipline, the understanding of what Deschamps needed from his wide players.
What gets me is not his skill level or his pace, it's his confidence. I've never seen such a confident teenager. That's one of the biggest assets you can have, because when a player loses confidence, no matter how talented, it's tough to get back. But he is super confident.
The defensive tracking and the intelligent positioning that showed a teenager operating with the football intelligence of someone considerably older and more experienced. Deschamps had built France to absorb and counter, to sit deep, stay organized, and then release Mbappé into the spaces that opened up when opponents committed forward against a team that looked passive but was actually waiting. For that system to work, the wide players had to be willing to do unglamorous defensive work.
And we were asking if Kylian Mbappé was the best player in the tournament right now, and even before this game, obviously, Craig, you'd said yes. With what we're seeing, is he the best player in the world right now?
Yes.
And Mbappé did it. A teenager in his first World Cup, following a defensive tactical brief without complaint because he understood the bigger picture and trusted that his moments would come. And then came Argentina. That game, Mbappé versus Messi, the teenage prodigy against the established greatest, the new king challenging the old one, remains one of the most electric individual performances in World Cup knockout history.
Mbappe shoots 3 penalties. I never seen that in my life. 3 on the same side. I mean, you have to have the guts to do it. Remember, Jeff Hurst in 1966 was the last guy who scored an hat-trick. Yes. And Mbappe did it, and on top of it scored a penalty on the penalty shootout.
11 minutes in, Mbappé picked up the ball in his own half and ran. He hit 37 kilometers per hour, a top speed that made the Argentina defenders look like they were operating in a completely different physical dimension. The only way to stop him was to foul him in the penalty area. He scored twice in that match. He became the first teenager since Pelé to score twice in a World Cup knockout game. He looked across those 90 minutes like the inheritor of everything that football's greatest lineage has to offer.
Qu'est-ce qui te fait peur?
De pas gagner, de décevoir, parce que tu es exigeant avec toi-même.
In the games that followed, against Uruguay and Belgium, Mbappé showed the next layer of what made him special beyond the pure physical gifts. Teams tried to block his runs. They put extra defenders in his path. They took away the spaces he had been exploiting. And rather than disappearing against that organized opposition, Mbappé demonstrated that the speed and the goals were only the most visible parts of a much more complete player. He was smart on the ball, he linked play, he created for teammates, he moved the game forward through intelligence when he could not do it through pace alone.
I think sometimes in the life I'm too competitive, it's good to be competitive.
The final against Croatia delivered the ultimate confirmation. His strike into the bottom corner in the second half, taken with composure and precision under the pressure of a World Cup final, combined with his 4 goals across the tournament and the Best Young Player award to complete a debut World Cup that most established stars would trade their careers for. France were world champions, and Mbappé, not yet 20 years old, had been the tournament's defining young player. 2022 in Qatar was an entirely different story, and in some ways an even more impressive one. France arrived carrying a genuinely catastrophic injury list. Karim Benzema, the best striker in the world at that point, fresh from winning the Ballon d'Or, got hurt before the tournament even started. The squad was depleted in ways that would have derailed most national teams before the first game was played. And everyone in football understood immediately what that meant. Mbappé was no longer going to be the second name on the team sheet. He was going to be the team. He accepted that responsibility without hesitation. Against Denmark, he scored twice on his own. Against Poland in the round of 16, he was devastating. an assist, and 2 goals in a performance that looked more like a training session for him than a competitive knockout game. By that point, he already had 5 goals in 4 matches, and France were looking like genuine contenders despite the injury problems that had supposedly undermined them before a ball was kicked. Against England, against Morocco, Mbappé did not score, but he was still the player that shaped everything. England put 2 and sometimes 3 players specifically tasked with stopping him, and that spatial disruption created exactly the freedom his teammates needed to win both games. The goal, Tchouaméni scored against England. The space existed because Mbappé had pulled defenders completely out of their positions. The winning goal against Morocco, Mbappé went on a run past 3 defenders that forced Morocco to reorganize desperately, creating the opening that France converted. He was deciding games without touching the net, which is the truest measure of a genuinely complete player. And then the final against Argentina delivered the most extraordinary individual performance in the history of the World Cup final. For 80 minutes, Mbappé was almost invisible. France were losing 2-0. The game looked completely over. Argentina were playing brilliantly and Mbappé had not had a shot on goal. And then in 97 seconds, he changed everything. 80th minute. Penalty converted to make it 2-1. 81st minute. A falling volley of such technical brilliance and composure under pressure that it defies reasonable expectation. 2-2. The stadium went completely insane. In less than 2 minutes, Mbappé had dragged France back from the dead and made the World Cup final genuinely contested again. When Argentina went 3-2 up in extra time, Mbappé stepped up and scored another penalty to tie it at 3-3, a hat trick in a World Cup final. The first since Jeff Hurst in 1966. 3 goals, 2 of them penalties, yes. But the pressure of converting a penalty in a World Cup final when billions of people are watching and the stakes are absolute is not something that can be minimized or dismissed. The mental strength required to step up in those moments and produce is as remarkable as any technical achievement the sport contains. France lost on penalties despite Mbappé converting the opening spot kick. He walked away with the golden boot, 8 goals, the tournament's top scorer. But you could see from his face exactly how much the individual award meant to him in the context of losing the biggest game in football. 0. He had given everything, and it was not enough to bring the trophy home. And there was something both heartbreaking and compelling about watching someone perform at that level and still not win. Now comes 2026, and the timing is extraordinary. Because the pattern that defines Mbappé's pre-World Cup seasons has appeared again with more force and more clarity than in any previous cycle. He did it before 2018 with 21 goals and 8 assists for PSG, playing as a team player, making others shine, fitting into the collective. He did it before 2022 with 40-plus goals, carrying PSG almost single-handedly while managing the Real Madrid transfer drama that would have broken most players' focus. And now in the 2025 to 2026 season, as a Real Madrid player, he is doing it again, but at a level that makes even those previous peaks look modest by comparison. 32 goals before the season was halfway through, including 4 goals in a single Champions League game, playing centrally as a pure striker rather than from the wing, operating at a level of finishing efficiency and goal-scoring variety that Real Madrid have not seen since Cristiano Ronaldo was at his absolute peak. If you want to understand how dangerous Mbappé is going into this World Cup, that context is everything. He is in the form of his life. He is in the right system. He is playing with the freedom and the confidence that comes from performing at that level week after week for the biggest club in the world. His physical qualities have been discussed so many times that they risk becoming background noise, but they remain genuinely extraordinary and worth examining specifically. The acceleration, not just the top speed, but the ability to reach that top speed from a standing start in just a few steps, is the detail that makes him almost impossible to defend. A defender who gets tight enough to challenge him gets beaten by pure pace. A defender who drops off to give themselves reaction time creates the space for Mbappé to drive directly at them. There is no defensive positioning that removes the problem, there is only damage limitation. And the goal-scoring intelligence has developed to match the physical gifts. In 2018, he was still primarily a winger who finished well. Now he is a complete striker who scores from range, from inside the box, from half chances that most forwards would not even attempt to convert. from impossible angles and in impossible situations. He scores when he is falling. He scores under maximum pressure. He scores the goals that should not go in because he has developed the technical sophistication to find solutions that other players do not even identify as options. What happens to his legacy if France win the World Cup in 2026? That is the question that the football world is going to spend the next several months debating, because the implications are significant in directions that go well beyond the obvious. Is he already better than Zidane? In France, Zidane occupies a space in national consciousness that goes beyond statistics. He is a symbol of excellence and beauty and national pride that the numbers alone cannot fully capture. But Mbappé has already scored more goals in a World Cup final than Zidane ever did. If he wins a second World Cup, his statistical legacy and his list of personal achievements will exceed Zidane's in almost every measurable category. That conversation, already uncomfortable in France where Zidane's status feels close to sacred, becomes unavoidable. And the GOAT conversation? For 2 decades, the debate was Messi versus Ronaldo, with everyone else a long way behind. Then Messi won his World Cup in Qatar, and for many people that closed the argument. But if Mbappé wins in 2026, he will have 2 World Cup trophies to Messi's 1. He will almost certainly be the all-time leading scorer in a World Cup history. He will have led France as captain, as the central figure, as the player the entire system was built around. For a decade of World Cups. That is not the same as being part of a great team. That is the sole organizing principle of a national team's tournament strategy. Recency bias is real and powerful in football. If France had won the penalty shootout in Qatar after Mbappé's hat trick, the GOAT conversation would have shifted dramatically and immediately. If France win in 2026 with Mbappé delivering at the level his current form suggests he is capable of, the conversation shifts again, and it might shift permanently. The World Cup belongs to Kylian Mbappé. It has belonged to him since he was 19 years old, and the entire football world suddenly understood that something genuinely extraordinary was arriving. And in 2026, with everything he has built and everything he has proven and the form he is currently producing, the next chapter of that ownership is about to be written.